Hello, Namaskar. This is Firstpost and you're watching Vantage with me, Palki Sharma. 3 days since the Pahalgam attack, Pakistan is in war mode, with ceasefire violations along the line of control and military supply lines being activated. India too has mobilized resources and launched exercises to simulate high-intensity conflict. We'll tell you how the Air Force is better equipped and better prepared compared to its last operation in 2019. That's when India launched the Balakot strikes and demolished terror camps in Pakistan. Meanwhile, the government is keeping all political parties in the loop with meetings and briefings and an honest admission that there was a security lapse. New Delhi is also rallying diplomatic support. The impact of its first measures is beginning to show, with airlines taking longer routes to avoid the Pak airspace and Pakistani citizens scrambling to leave India before the 48-hour deadline. Amid all of this, Islamabad continues to deny and deflect. It is, in turn, blaming India for killing its own people in what they call a false flag operation. Tonight, we repeat what we've said all along. Terrorism emanating from Pakistan is not just a threat for India, but the whole world, and the West needs to wake up to this reality. Stop their power politics and end military support to the Pakistan army. Also, look at the money trail. How is a country that survives on bailouts and handouts being able to sponsor terrorist groups? Where is the IMF money going? Also in focus, Donald Trump's rare rebuke of Putin, who is set to win the Canada election, and how the Pope's funeral will be an awkward meeting of world leaders. All this and more coming up. The headlines first.
U.S. President Donald Trump insists his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping called him, but Beijing denies any contact between the two leaders. The world's two biggest economies are locked in a bitter trade dispute. It has been triggered by Trump's levies on Chinese goods. The tariff blitz has rattled markets and raised fears of a global recession. Iran's top diplomat arrives in Oman ahead of fresh nuclear talks with the U.S. Both sides have said progress has been made in the two previous rounds. President Trump's special envoy to the Middle East will represent Washington in the meet. Trump has warned Tehran of potential military action if diplomacy fails. A small plane crashes near a popular beach town in Thailand. The police aircraft was on a test flight. It was preparing for a parachute training drill. All 6 officers on board perished in the crash. An investigation has been launched to find the cause of the accident. Russia's central bank keeps borrowing costs at a 2-decade high of 21%. This despite warnings that the economy is headed for a slowdown. For months now, prices have been rising across the Russian economy, driven up by massive government spending on the Ukraine war and labor shortages. And a strike by employees at Nigeria's weather forecasting agency grounds dozens of flights, leaving many travelers stranded in Africa's most populous country. The strike demanding better working conditions was later called off.
India will identify, track and punish every terrorist and their backers.
Kashmir is on edge. 3 days after the terror attack in Pehalgam, tensions are rising. The India-Pakistan border is volatile again. Yesterday, Pakistani troops opened fire, yet another unprovoked attack. Pakistani forces used small arms. They targeted multiple locations on the line of control. This is a serious breach of the ceasefire agreement, an agreement that was reached in 2021. Now Pakistan is violating it. So first a provocation with a terror strike, then an escalation on the border. The Indian army responded swiftly. Thankfully, there were no casualties. But this is not over. Islamabad is preparing for a bigger conflict. Pakistan closed its airspace to all Indian airlines. Behind the scenes, military supply lines are being activated. Refineries have been told to boost fuel production. They have been asked to beef up fuel stocks like high-speed diesel for army mobilization and aviation fuel for Pakistan's Air Force. Also, petroleum imports have been fast-tracked. So across the board, the Pakistani military is on high alert. The Army, the Navy, the Air Force, all units of Pakistan's military are being mobilized. The fight is escalating on the diplomatic front as well. 2 days ago, India decided to suspend the Indus Waters Treaty. This is a 6-decade-old water-sharing pact between India and Pakistan. New Delhi has decided to suspend it. Yesterday, this was officially communicated to Pakistan that India has put the Indus Treaty on hold. In response, Pakistan's government is lashing out. Their foreign minister says Pakistan is at war with India.
लो इंटेंसिटी जंग जो है हिंदुस्तान जो है टेररिस्ट वॉर जो है हमारे खिलाफ ऑलरेडी लड़ रहा है. तो अगर उन्होंने इसका जो स्केल जो है ऊपर करना चाहा तो हम तैयार हैं उसके लिए. किसी को शक नहीं होना चाहिए. और हम अपने मुल्क की सरजमीन के लिए, अपने मुल्क की हिफाजत के लिए किसी इंटरनेशनल में प्रेशर में आने वाले नहीं हैं.
Pakistan's power minister took this a step further. He accused India of water warfare. He claimed, and I'm quoting, "Every drop is our right," and threatened to take the matter to global courts. But this rhetoric cannot mask the reality. The evidence and facts point to Pakistan, and the world is watching. Pakistan's National Security Committee has met in Islamabad. Their response? Denial. They called the attack a false flag operation by India. But again, the evidence speaks for itself. The terrorists belong to the resistance front, a new terror group, but a group with old roots. It is an offshoot of the Lashkar-e-Toiba, a group that has operated from Pakistani soil for decades. Its networks, training, support, all trace back across the border. India's army chief was in Srinagar today. His name is General Upendra Dwivedi. He chaired security briefings and visited the Pahalgam attack site. Meanwhile, the hunt for the attackers continues. Today, a major blast took place in Kashmir's Pulwama. The target was the house of Asif Sheikh, one of the terrorists involved in the Pahalgam attack. Security forces had reached the site for a search operation. During the operation, they spotted suspicious objects. So soldiers retreated for safety, and seconds later, a massive blast ripped through the building. The house was badly damaged. It is believed that explosive material was stored inside. Asif Sheikh's name has already surfaced in the attack. He is believed to be one of the 7 terrorists involved. The other name that has been confirmed is Adil Tokar. His house too has been destroyed. All 7 are still at large. Indian security officials have announced a bounty, $23,500 per head for any tip that leads to an arrest. The first priority is to catch these terrorists. It has been 3 days. They're still on the run. They must be caught, and India cannot stop at that. A comprehensive response is needed, a crushing blow that sends a message to Pakistan and its terror proxies. So the military preparation is underway. Chances are we will see a strike in the coming days or weeks. At the same time, political work is also happening. Yesterday, the government convened an all-party meeting. Leaders of 15 parties were present. The meeting was chaired by India's defense minister. Also present were the Home Minister and the External Affairs Minister. This meeting kicked off with a presentation by the Intelligence Bureau Chief. He described how the attack unfolded. He also spelled out the immediate response. The government made two main points yesterday. One, the attack was intended to disrupt Kashmir's progress. The valley was seeing a tourism bump. Clearly, the terrorists wanted to stop that. They wanted to vitiate the atmosphere. And second, that a firm response would follow. The government promised a zero-tolerance approach to terrorism.
सरकार का आतंकवाद के खिलाफ ज़ीरो टॉलरेंस पॉलिसी के बारे में शुरू में बताया कि एक घटना बहुत दुखद है, उसके वजह से जो देश भर में सब लोग चिंतित हैं, उसको लेते हुए भारत सरकार ने और भी कड़ी कार्रवाई करने का मंशा को भी आज जताया है.
Of course, details of the response were not discussed, and the opposition did not push for it either. The Congress party joined the government in condemning the attack. They promised full support for any move.
यूनिफॉर्मली कंडेम किया है सबने जो हुआ है और पूरी सपोर्ट दिया ऑपोजिशन ने सरकार को, कोई भी एक्शन नहीं.
Some questions were also raised. The Congress asked why Prime Minister Modi was not present in the meeting. Several parties also flagged the possibility of a security lapse, and reports say that the government admitted it. As you know, the attack happened in Pahalgam's Baisaran Valley. Now, this valley is usually closed during the winter. It opens only in the month of June. But this year, it was open in April. Tour operators began taking bookings from the 20th of April, and the government was not aware of it. Hence the security lapse. All in all, the meeting lasted for around 2 hours. Afterwards, we saw a united front. In Jammu and Kashmir, another all-party meeting was organized. This one involved parties active in the region, like the National Conference, the Congress Party, the BJP and the PDP. Their leaders condemned the Pahalgam attack. They called it an attack on Kashmiriyat, which is the Kashmiri way of life.
Such cowardly acts of brutality against peaceful citizens have no place in society and are a direct assault on the values of Kashmiriyat and the idea of India, which have long been a symbol of unity, peace and harmony in the region. We stand unwavering in our commitment to support all efforts to bring these perpetrators to justice.
Some Kashmiri students have reported harassment. Such cases have been seen in Dehradun, Chandigarh and Noida. Jammu and Kashmir groups say that they have received more than 1,000 distress calls, and this issue also came up in the meeting. Chief Minister Omar Abdullah flagged the attacks. He says he's in touch with his counterparts. Now, all these political moves may seem time-consuming and unnecessary. You may think, why talk instead of hitting back? But this process is very important. For starters, it sets us apart from the likes of Pakistan. In Islamabad, there is no such consensus. Their opposition leaders are in jail and the government takes orders from the army, an army that the people of Pakistan increasingly do not support. In New Delhi, things work differently. It works like a democracy is supposed to work. Secondly, political consensus is key for military action. It ensures that everyone is on the same page, that all parties speak in one voice. This gives the government confidence to take bold steps. It also boosts the morale of the armed forces. And that was the biggest takeaway from yesterday's meeting. Yes, the opposition had questions. Yes, they raised some concerns. But in the end, there was unity on display, which is very different from the scenes across the border. Unity is a key weapon in a country's arsenal, and India is armed with it.
All stations, all stations. Roger.
The more you sweat in peace, the less you bleed in war. You may have heard this before. It means training and readiness in times of peace are crucial for success in wartime. And India has been preparing, both before and after the Pahalgam attack. Yesterday, the Indian Air Force launched Exercise Akraman. The word Akraman literally translates to attack. The exercise comes right after the terror attack in Pahalgam. As Pakistan increases ceasefire violations, India is preparing for an escalation. Rafale and Su-30 jets are in the skies. Here's what we know about the exercise. Here's what it is about. It's about precision strikes. air dominance sorties, and integrated warfare. The aim? To simulate a real-time, high-intensity conflict. So the message is loud and clear. India's military is switching gears to offensive mode. The drills are taking place over central India. The Indian Air Force has mobilized its strike force. We told you about the Rafale and the Su-30 jets. Fighter pilots are practicing complex missions, like long-range missions and airstrikes in mountainous regions. The idea is quite simple. Practice to breach enemy lines and deliver a deadly blow. Does it sound familiar? It should, because this is a doctrine that India has used before. I'm talking about the Balakot strikes from February 2019. That's when the Indian Air Force bombed terror camps deep inside Pakistan. You may remember the terror attack in Pulwama. A suicide bomber attacked a convoy of Indian security forces. 40 soldiers were killed, 40. All fingers pointed to Pakistan, from funding to training the suicide bomber. India was shocked and angry. And 12 days later, India retaliated. Mirage 2000 jets crossed into Pakistan. They bombed Jaish-e-Mohammed terror camps in Pakistan's Balakot. The mission lasted a total of 21 minutes. It was the first airstrike on Pakistani soil since 1971. A bold move that shattered Pakistan's nuclear blackmail. Balakot was not just a military strike, it was a message. India's doctrine and threshold both had shifted, and terror would be met with force. What came next was an air skirmish, where India lost a MiG-21. Balakot was a tactical win for India, but it also exposed a few gaps, like lack of joint planning, delays in intelligence sharing, and the need for modern air power. Remember, all of this happened 6 years ago. India took the lessons and began the work, and look at what has changed since then. Starting with the defense budget. India's defense budget has grown from $42 billion to $75 billion. That's a jump of nearly 82%. Modernization has been relentless. India has invested heavily on offensive capabilities. The Air Force now has Rafale jets. These jets can carry 2 lethal weapons. The first is the Meteor. This is a long-range air-to-air missile. It can hit targets more than 150 kilometers away. The second is the Scalp missile, a long-range air-to-ground missile. It can take out terror camps 500 kilometers away. The absence of Rafales was felt in Balakot, but now India has them. It has also upgraded other platforms. Long-range missiles and bombs have been integrated into the Su-30 jets, like the Astra, India's homegrown long-range air-to-air missile, and the BrahMos, a supersonic cruise missile that has 99.99% accuracy. Apache attack helicopters are now in the ranks. The transport fleet has newer aircraft. So India has invested in its offensive capabilities. What about defense? India did not have its best anti-aircraft system in 2019, but now it is fully operational. I'm talking about the S-400 air defense system. They can take down targets 400 kilometers away, which is basically every Pakistani airbase. Every Pakistani airbase is in range. The S-400 was missing in 2019, but now it is fully deployed. And these are just a handful of upgrades. A lot has changed since Balakot. India's surveillance network has expanded with satellites and drones. Procurement for the armed forces has significantly increased. We already told you about the Air Force's purchases. The Army and Navy have also made major procurements, like the Pinaka rocket systems, aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines. Even the infrastructure has been expanded. Border roads are wider. Air bases and logistical hubs have been upgraded. Weapons manufacturing has seen a 174% rise. 174%. And you know what has been the biggest change in the last few years? The mindset. The political will to strike back and the military's resolve to hit with precision. Since Balakot, India's approach has been clear. Offense is the best defense. It is a signal to Islamabad. India's patience is not its weakness. India is ready to respond to terrorism on its terms and at a time of its choosing. Have you ever wondered who pays for Pakistan's terrorism? Who is funding the terror factories? This country is broke. Pakistan is the most bailed out country in the world. The IMF has stepped in to rescue it for a record 24 times. That is the highest for any country ever. 24 bailouts. They survive from bailout to bailout. Their economy teeters on collapse. Their foreign reserves are thin. Public debt is crippling. And basic state services run on external aid. Despite all of this, their terror infrastructure continues to thrive. So again, who funds them? Where is the money coming from? In 2023, the US published an assessment. 41 terror groups remain active in Pakistan. 41 groups. We know that they have the backing of the Pakistani state, but their money comes through multiple channels. Donations, extortion, and a shadow network of illegal money transfers. These are time-tested strategies. Groups like the Al-Qaeda took these methods a step further. That's Osama bin Laden's group. They had some fancy arrangements in place like front companies. These are companies that look like legitimate businesses, but they're not. They act as a front for a terrorist group. Front companies exist to hide illegal operations. They move money without generating attention or without attracting attention. They have offices, they have staff, but it's all a facade. Al-Qaeda mastered the system. It built a web of companies across sectors. A holding firm called Wadi al-Aqiq, a construction company called Al-Hijra, agriculture firms Al-Thimar and Al-Mubaraka, investment companies Laden International and Taba Investments, even a leather company and a transport service. They all looked legit, they all operated openly, but their purpose was singular and sinister: to move money to terror groups, including those operating in Kashmir. They bankrolled terrorism and bloodshed. So that's one method of funding, creating front companies. Another method is Hawala. It is the most consistent funding channel for terrorists. Again, what is Hawala? It operates like a parallel banking system, but outside any formal regulation. There is no need for a bank account. There is no digital record. Cash is moved using code words and phone calls. And the funds are untraceable, because effectively, this is black money being moved around. The system moves cash across borders in complete secrecy. In Kashmir, Hawala is a lifeline for terrorist groups. Exporters under-invoice their goods. The rest of the money is diverted to terror financing. The ISI uses the system, that is Pakistan's infamous spy agency. Over time, this network has also evolved, with terrorists now trying digital systems. In Pakistan, groups like the TTP have appealed for funds through cryptocurrency. TTP is the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, an extremist group. Telegram messages have asked supporters to donate via Binance accounts. Others used Monero, which is a privacy-based digital currency. This system is designed to evade detection. According to one claim, terror groups in Pakistan are also using mobile wallets and local digital banking networks. Once set up, these systems are hard to trace and even harder to shut down. The structure is complex, the strategy is clear. Pakistan's terror groups are built to survive sanctions, and they're funded to outlive crackdowns. So what can India do about it? India can follow the money, cut the funding at its source. And that means putting a spotlight on Islamabad, exposing its murky finances. In the past, India has turned to the FATF, the Financial Action Task Force, FATF. It is a global watchdog for terror financing. For many years, Pakistan was grey-listed by the FATF. This made it harder for them to get international loans. But with the help of partners like Turkey and China, Pakistan has managed to get out of the grey list. It is time for India to make a renewed push, show the world where its money is going, how Pakistan is using aid to fund terrorism, and demand more scrutiny into the finances of what is clearly a terror state. On Wednesday, India announced its first set of diplomatic measures. Yesterday, Pakistan hit back with retaliatory steps, and the first impact of it is showing. India has asked Pakistani citizens to leave the country. They have 48 hours to do so, and many were seen scrambling to get to the border. Meanwhile, Pakistan has closed its airspace to India. Basically, no Indian flights will be able to fly over Pakistan. This is not the first time this is happening. After the 2019 Balakot strikes, Islamabad took the same measure. Indian Airlines ended up losing 700 crore rupees. So what will it be like this time? Our next report tells you.
The sky looks like one vast, endless canvas. But look closer and it's crisscrossed with invisible highways, lanes in the air, drawn not by wind or weather, but by geopolitics and grudges. And for Indian Airlines, one of the most crucial lanes runs straight through Pakistan. It's a natural and more efficient route westwards, making the journey to West Asia and Europe shorter.
Airspace.
On Thursday, Pakistan closed its airspace to India. Basically, Indian Airlines can no longer fly over Pakistan, which means they are being forced to reroute. How will it impact them? Well, there will be additional flight times, higher fuel burn, increased costs, and a growing sense of déjà vu among India's aviation executives. After all, this isn't the first time it's happening. In 2019, India hit terror camps in Balakot with airstrikes. Soon after that, Pakistan closed its airspace to India. According to estimates, Indian Airlines lost around 700 crore rupees then. This is due to longer journeys and higher fuel expenses. And while Indian planes are now being forced to zigzag their way around the subcontinent, foreign carriers can still fly over Pakistan. That gives them a distinct cost and time advantage. For example, a Turkish Airlines flight from Istanbul to Delhi remains on the same route. An Air India flight covering a similar route, not so much. So Indian Airlines will feel the pinch. The last time this happened, it took 5 months for Pakistan to fully reopen its skies. This time, no one knows how long the closure will last. So there will be some chaos in the skies. Meanwhile, on the ground, the situation is already chaotic. On Wednesday, India cancelled visas for all Pakistani nationals. They were asked to leave the country in 48 hours.
Pakistani nationals will not be permitted to travel to India under the SAARC visa exemption scheme visas. Any SVAS visas issued in the past to Pakistani nationals are deemed cancelled. Any Pakistani national currently in India under SVES visa has 48 hours to leave India.
The SVES system allows 24 categories of individuals to travel without a visa. This includes dignitaries, judges of higher courts, parliamentarians, senior officials, businessmen, journalists and sportsmen. That deadline is now looming, and many of them are scrambling to reach the border. Indian government sources suggest that Home Minister Amit Shah has spoken to all chief ministers on the issue. He has asked them to identify all Pakistani nationals in their respective states and take steps to ensure their prompt return to Pakistan. For those on medical visas, there's a slight extension. But the clock is ticking for everyone else. So, up in the skies, flights are taking the longer route. And down on the ground, people are being shown the door. But the fallout is just beginning. And no one knows how far this could go in the coming days.
If all of this feels familiar, that's because it is. India has danced this grim duet with Pakistan far too many times. Every time there's an attack like this, Pakistan pulls out its tired old playbook. Deny, deflect, blame India, invoke Kashmir, and call for dialogue. And when pressure builds, Islamabad reaches for the usual script. Lashkar-e-Toiba? Never heard of it. Jaish-e-Mohammed doesn't exist at all. But this time the mask slipped, and it slipped a little too far. Pakistan's National Security Council met yesterday. They did not call for calm. They did not condemn the attack. They decided on tit for tat. And after that, there was a press conference. That's where Pakistan's true colors came out. Their foreign minister was addressing the media, a man called Ishaq Dar. And this is what he had to say.
Those who carried out attacks in Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam district on 22nd April might be freedom fighters.
He called the terrorists freedom fighters, not extremists, not even non-state actors, just straight up freedom fighters. Usually, calling the slaughter of unarmed civilians an act of freedom would be political suicide, but in Pakistan, it was just another Thursday. Because for decades, they've done the same thing. First, they fund and train terrorists, then they unleash them into Indian territory, and finally, they wash their hands off the blood with conspiracy theories. And it's like one such statement was not bad enough, because Pakistan doubled down on it. Their defense minister, Wagah Asif, gave an interview to Sky News. And there are a few points that stand out. First, he thinks India staged it. Let me quote what he said. The reaction which came from Delhi is not very surprising for us. We could make out that this whole thing is staged to create crisis in the region. So according to Pakistan's leadership, India did this. India killed its own people to create a crisis. If this is delusion, we would ask them to seek help. But if this is their media strategy, it's not only bad, it is borderline pathological. And Wagah Asif was not done there. The anchor asked him if Pakistan had a long history of funding terrorism. And listen to what he said.
You do admit, sir, that Pakistan has had a long history of backing and supporting and training and funding these terrorist organizations.
Well, we have been doing this dirty work for the United States for about 3 decades, and West, including Britain.
Well, that was truly candid of him. This is something that India has been saying for decades. And finally, a sitting Pakistani minister is admitting it on television. Islamabad has been exporting terror for decades now, 3 decades according to Wagah Asif. So the mask has truly slipped, and how? Is it lack of diplomacy or just bad media training? We will let Pakistan figure that out, but here's a reality check for Islamabad. Terrorism is not freedom. Butchers cannot be heroes. Pakistan can hide behind fake press conferences. They can send their ministers to lie on foreign channels. They can even weave whatever narrative they want, but the truth always has a way of slipping out, and this time it slipped out loud and clear. No amount of gaslighting can erase the facts. No amount of diplomatic posturing can wash away the blood of innocence. So here is the bottom line. You can call them freedom fighters, but the world sees them for what they are, for who they are, terrorists. And sooner or later, even your allies will begin to see it. Pakistan can keep rehearsing the same old script. But India has read it enough times to know how it ends. It is finally time the world catches up. We say the world should catch up. But is the world interested? All indications are no, they're not. They may condemn the terrorists and the attack, but they never hold Pakistan accountable. Just look at the United Nations. They're talking about maximum restraint.
We very much appeal to both the governments of Pakistan and the government of India to exercise maximum restraint and to ensure that the situation and the developments we've seen do not deteriorate any further. Any issues between Pakistan and India, we believe can be and should be resolved peacefully.
How about that? India is the victim here, yet we are being asked to show restraint. Why not lecture Pakistan instead? Why not condemn their support for terrorism? And this is not a new pattern. It dates back to the last century. Pakistan provokes India. India hits back, but the world puts pressure on us to stand down. We saw that during the 1965 war, then again in the 1971 war. In this century, the pressure is even more because now India and Pakistan are nuclear powers. So everyone has the same advice for India. Do not escalate too much. So what are you supposed to do? Should we stand by and watch our people get killed? The fact is, the world has ignored the threat from Pakistan. Some countries have also actively cultivated it. And chief among them is the United States of America. As a country, Pakistan has always relied on foreign assistance, and the West has always obliged. I'll show you some numbers. From 1960 to 2002, Pakistan got around $73 billion in foreign aid, $73 billion. Again, the US was the biggest donor. After 2002, this aid ballooned. The US alone gave $19 billion to Pakistan from 2002 to 2010. 8 years, $19 billion, that's more than $2 billion per year. Where did this money go? It was supposed to counter terrorism. But Pakistan covertly supported those same terrorists. Even today, it's the same. In February, Donald Trump approved an aid package for Pakistan, almost $400 million for fighter jets. So you are arming Pakistan, you are giving funds to their army, yet you act surprised and sad when they sponsor terrorists. How many more times do you have to be betrayed? First was Osama bin Laden. The US chased him for more than a decade, and where did they find him? Right next door to a Pakistan military facility. Next was the Taliban. The United States fought them for more than 2 decades in Afghanistan. Pakistan was supposedly helping the Americans, yet who cheered the Taliban's comeback? The same Pakistan. So it's time for the world to wake up and smell the coffee. This is not a friendly, responsible state. This is a rogue country. Which raises the question, what should the world do? Well, for starters, stop lecturing India. We are the victims here, not the aggressor. If anything, we are doing the world a favor. Secondly, cut off the funding. No more foreign aid or multilateral bailouts for Pakistan. And I know what the critics will say here. What about the people of Pakistan? Why punish them for the army's doing? Well, for starters, there is no evidence that the money is reaching them. Pakistan has got 24 bailouts from the IMF. The only people who seem to be benefiting are the generals. And if 24 bailouts did not work, the 25th won't either. Secondly, what about the people of Afghanistan, the people of Iran or North Korea? Are they not being punished for their regime's crimes? Why is it okay in Iran but not okay in Pakistan? It exposes the hypocrisy of world powers. And finally, it's time to defang the Pakistani army. This is a nuclear power with no stability. Tomorrow, militants could overrun Islamabad and Rawalpindi. If they do, what happens to Pakistan's western arsenal? What happens to their stockpile of nukes? You think those terrorists and militants will only target India? Well, you're mistaken. They will target the whole world. Yet major powers seem oblivious to this threat. They ask North Korea to give up its nukes. They ask Iran to abandon its nuclear program. But Pakistan continues in its merry ways. This is a disaster waiting to happen. Pakistan is like that deranged attacker with a knife. When you face him, you have two options. Either you snatch the knife away with force, or you convince him to drop the knife. Right now, the world is not doing either of those things. Instead, it is asking the victim to calm down. Donald Trump has a message for Russia's president, Vladimir Putin. He says, Vladimir, stop. Yes, that's what the US president wrote on Truth Social, his social media platform. He addressed Putin by his first name for the first time. In public at least. Trump was reacting to Russian missile attacks on Ukraine. He said Putin was not listening to him. And look at the timing. This comes just a day after Trump said that Putin was easier to deal with and that Ukraine was the problematic one. The US president's frustration is growing and showing. He once called Putin a genius. Now Trump says Russia is playing hardball. And all of this is happening on social media, which Putin does not even use. Well, here's the truth. Social media rants won't end wars. Diplomacy happens in person. What will it take for Trump to convince Putin? Our next report has more.
Donald Trump, the self-proclaimed deal-maker, has run into a problem. His quote-unquote friend, Russian President Vladimir Putin, won't listen to him. No, this is not a teen sitcom we're talking about. We're talking about the two largest nuclear powers in the world. In one corner is U.S. President Donald Trump, the man who promised to end the war in Ukraine on day one of taking office.
Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the disastrous war between Russia and Ukraine settled. It will be settled quickly. I will get the problem solved, and I will get it solved in rapid order, and it will take me no longer than one day.
And in the other corner is Russian President Vladimir Putin, the man who has dealt with 5 U.S. presidents since the year 2000, including Donald Trump. And despite differences between the U.S. and Russia, Trump and Putin have built quite a relationship between themselves. Trump often calls Putin a genius, while Putin calls Trump a brave man. And they both say they have close ties. So when Trump took office this year, he was certain that he would be able to influence Putin into ending the war in Ukraine. It has been 4 months now, and a peace deal looks in shambles. Trump first blamed Ukraine. He said Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was the problem. On Wednesday, Trump ranted against Zelensky on Truth Social. He said Zelensky had no cards to play. On Thursday, Russia launched a barrage of missiles at Ukraine, and suddenly Trump lost all love for the Russian president. The U.S. president took to social media again. Vladimir, stop. I'm not happy with the Russian strikes on Kyiv. Let's get the peace deal done. From Putin is a genius to Vladimir, stop this war. Clearly something rubbed the U.S. president the wrong way. Enough to make Trump address the Russian president by his first name, Vladimir. Trump added that Russia was being painful and that Putin was being unreasonable.
I didn't like last night. I wasn't happy with it. And we're in the midst of talking peace, and missiles were fired. And I was not happy with it. That's what I meant, and that's, what it is.
Trump's rant against Putin was on his social media platform Truth Social. But just a day prior, the U.S. president had praised Putin. He had said Russia was easier to deal with in Ukraine. The U.S. president may have chided Putin once. But his barbs against Zelensky have not stopped. Trump keeps blaming Zelensky for not striking a deal 3 years ago. He says the Ukrainian leader doesn't want a peace deal.
I think he wants to make a deal. We're going to find out very soon, but it takes 2 to tango. And you have to have Ukraine want to make a deal too. And
diplomacy doesn't happen on social media. The war is very much a reality, and Russia says its demands are non-negotiable. If Trump is serious about ending the war, he may have to put down his phone and meet Putin. But the only question is, will Putin listen?
Now let's turn our attention to Canada. It is heading to the polls on April 28th. Canadians will vote in the federal election. This will determine which party will lead their government and which leader is best suited to counter the Trump administration. Because these elections come at a crucial time. After Justin Trudeau's disastrous stint in office for almost a decade and growing tensions with Canada's closest neighbor, the United States. So who are the top contenders? What are the key issues? How should India see this, given the Khalistani vote and influence in Canadian politics? And how does the Canadian election even work? Our next report tells you.
After Justin Trudeau's problematic stint in office for years, Mark Carney was sworn in as Canada's new Prime Minister last month.
I, Mark Carney.
Days later, he called for a snap election. And now Canadians are heading to the polls on April 28th. This federal election will determine which party will lead their government. The Liberal Party, which is currently in power under Mark Carney, or the Conservatives, who hope to return to power after nearly a decade in the opposition. This election is one of the most consequential in years, given the ramifications for Canada's recent shaky relations with its neighbour, the United States, as well as India-Canada ties, which have hit rock bottom in recent months. So let's break it down. How does the election work? Canadians do not vote directly for the Prime Minister. They vote for lawmakers who represent political parties in their district. The party with the largest number of lawmakers elected to parliament forms the government, and its leader becomes the prime minister. So, who are the top contenders for this position? Prime Minister Mark Carney is vying for a chance to continue leading the country. He belongs to the Liberal Party. He's a 60-year-old former bank governor. Though he's a newcomer to electoral politics, he is touting his experience in handling economic crisis.
Yeah, I think Mr. Carney is the new hope, right? He comes with an established track record. Leader of the Bank of Canada, leader of the Bank of England, has led, in really tough economic times.
Carney's main competition is Pierre Poilievre. He has led Canada's Conservative Party since 2022. He has championed free market and denounced wokeism.
Who's ready after this lost Liberal decade of rising cost and crime to fire this incompetent government and bring change to Canada?
Poilievre was favoured to win after Trudeau stepped down. But it didn't help that he has been painted as Donald Trump light. Because after Trump's brutal tariffs and threats of annexing Canada as the 51st state, the Liberals stand at 42.9%, while the Conservatives stand at 39.3%. Now Carney is in the lead in this tight race.
This is Canada. We decide what happens here. President Trump has been attacking Canada, America's closest ally, America's closest partner.
He's well spoken and he's ready to put Canada first, I think, and help out Canadians financially as well and take on the United States.
High cost of living, lack of affordable housing, struggling healthcare, and Khalistan terror also loom over the ballot. During the last election, the Liberals fell short of a majority and they relied on the New Democratic Party or NDP for support. It's led by Jagmeet Singh, a Khalistani sympathizer. While India has repeatedly urged Canada to rein in the Khalistan elements, Trudeau simply looked the other way. He faced pressure from Singh. This soured ties between New Delhi and Ottawa, and now it remains unclear if they would improve. While Carney and Poilievre are the frontrunners in this election, other parties are also on the ballot, including the NDP. According to the polls, the NDP trails at 7.2%. By next week, we'll know who will lead Canada for the next 4 years. And Canadians can only hope that if not the best man, then someone willing enough to counter Trump wins.
As you know, Pope Francis died on Monday morning. He will be laid to rest on Saturday in Rome. Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to attend his funeral, along with prominent leaders from all over the world, including US President Donald Trump, French President Emmanuel Macron, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and Argentinian President Javier Milei. Basically, leaders who usually do not appear in the same room. So it is safe to expect some diplomatic awkwardness at the funeral. Are there plans in place to avoid logistical nightmares? What is expected to happen at the funeral? Also, what comes next for the Catholic Church? Our next report tells you.
As Pope Francis' body lay in an open wooden coffin in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, within the first 24 hours, more than 50,000 people had filed past the coffin. And now, mourners will bid a final farewell to the Pope tomorrow. Pope Francis died on Monday at the age of 88. He will be laid to rest in Rome, before his body is interred in the Papal Basilica of Santa Maria Maggiore. A public funeral mass will be held in St. Peter's Square. It will follow a series of centuries-old rituals. It will be more modest than rites for the past pontiffs. and it will mark the beginning of the 9 days of mourning, soon after which attention will turn to the business of choosing the papal successor. The Pope's funeral is expected to be attended by hundreds of thousands of faithful, as well as dignitaries from 170 foreign delegations. Prominent leaders from all over the world will attend the funeral to pay their respects, including U.S. President Donald Trump. His policies on immigration were criticized by the late Pope, but Trump will be in Rome, along with his wife Melania. The attendee list also includes Emmanuel Macron, the President of France, Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of Ukraine, Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, Keir Starmer, the UK Prime Minister, Andrzej Duda, the President of Poland, Indian President Draupadi Murmu, the UN Secretary-General, Antonio Guterres, and Prince William. Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva will also be there. He is the President of Brazil, which is home to the world's largest Catholic population, with more than 100 million Catholics. Javier Milei, the President of the Pontiff's native Argentina, will also attend the funeral. Yes, the same Milei who has previously called the late Pope a communist, an imbecile, and a lefty. But guess who won't be there? Russian President Vladimir Putin. He has not traveled to a Western country since the war in Ukraine broke out 3 years ago, and is subject to an International Criminal Court arrest warrant. With numerous leaders in attendance, including many who are rarely seen in the same room together. The Pope's funeral is an unlikely opportunity for diplomatic encounters and awkwardness, especially with the Vatican's increasing role in global politics. The Pope has vocally advocated for peace in Ukraine, Gaza, and South Sudan. He has brokered a deal with Cuba, leading to the release of hundreds of jailed anti-government protesters. He has secretly helped mediate a thaw in relations between the US and Cuba. He has rebuked the mistreatment of refugees and migrants. The Church's diplomacy is wide, and the funeral will witness it in full swing. The world saw something similar during the funeral of Pope John Paul II in 2005. Experts called it the diplomatic event of the year, with uncomfortable moments abound. It came amid the Iraq War, which the Pope had opposed. So when former U.S. President George Bush appeared on television monitors, crowds booed him. He was sitting close to the leaders of Iran, Syria, and Cuba. He appeared to give them the cold shoulder. Meanwhile, then Prince Charles went the other way. He shook the hand of former Zimbabwe President Robert Mugabe, who was an international pariah, and had sidestepped an EU travel ban to attend the funeral. So what can be expected this time? Will Milei throw a side eye during the Holy See's funeral? Will Trump be kept away from Zelensky? Will this moment of reflection survive diplomatic gaffes? The faithfuls are hopeful.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. NASA celebrates the 35th anniversary of the Hubble Space Telescope with new celestial images. The U.S. state of New Jersey charges a teenager for arson in the worst wildfires in the state's history. And a huge motorcade in Peru protests against the new motorcycle rules in the country. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day, in 1859, construction began on the Suez Canal. It was completed 10 years later. It connected the Mediterranean and the Red Seas, becoming the shortest sea route between Europe and Asia. Today, the Suez Canal is one of the world's most heavily used shipping routes. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. Have a good weekend.
Greeting you with aloha and namaste.
I love India.
Presence, occupation of a territory by another country pertains to India, what we saw in Kashmir.
How do you see Trump's America?
Yes, the current administration behaves differently from the previous administration.
Are you saying that there are foreign powers who are trying to bring down the current government in Syria?
Exactly.
Bluntly, Iran, maybe Russia too.
Prime Minister Modi committed to South-South, cooperation.
Not over 50%.
Is Ukraine prepared to pay the price for that peace?
No compromises at the cost of territorial integrity and sovereignty.